All right, folks. Independent journalist Brian Dolinar wrote the piece called "It's a Money Grab: Billions in COVID Relief Going to Fund Police and Prisons." He follows the money right into the hands of law enforcement. What the hell? He joins me now from Urbana, Illinois. Brian, glad to have you here. I remember seeing the story where the mayor of Chicago said that, things are just so tough for police officers and they're just going through so much. And so we're going to use this money to create a wellness opportunity for them and all of that. But walk folks through how crazy money that was supposed to be for residents fighting COVID, we're funding cops in prisons.
That's right, Roland. Thanks for having me on. It's no April Fool's joke. There's millions and billions of dollars being spent on police. And Chicago is some $281 million. That's like 45% of the city budget is being spent to fund the Chicago police, which, as you know, have a notorious history of brutality in the black community in Chicago. This is happening in LA as well. In LA, there's some 300 plus million that was given out to the LAPD. No shortage of police scandals there either. So it's a big handout here that is going out to police. And as you noted, it's quite ironic. This is money that's set aside to help communities, small businesses, impacted communities. The black community was really torn apart. In some places, like 40% of deaths in the early stages of COVID, 40% of deaths were in the black community. So I talked to activists. They believe that 40% of COVID money should go back to the communities and not to the police.
See, this is the thing that happens in America. All of these people whining and complaining about defund the police when we're talking about resources. And I swear, I ain't never heard a police department say, y'all know what? We got enough money. We good. Y'all have given us enough money. It's always more. It's always the answer to everything. But then anything else in the city, it's, hey, sorry, we ain't got it. We out.
That's right. And so there's a real chance now, I think, for activists in the community to struggle over this money, to fight over the money. I really appreciated your segment on Kansas City. I'm from Kansas myself, so I know the Kansas City police, and there's a large, significant black community there, historic black community. And I was just digging up the numbers there. They had some $260 million allocated in the recent 2022-23 budget. 269 million are allocated to the police. A chunk of that is coming out of ARPA funds. This often gets hidden under personnel, but these are handouts to the police, to recruiting to police, for overtime, and this is fattening already fat budgets, as you know.
Questions from my panelists. Matt, you're first.
And it was fantastic. What I wanted to ask you was, how are these police departments and prisons getting this money that is intended for COVID relief? How are they going about doing that? I'm assuming it's through a grant process, but what are they having to claim justifies them getting money that is obviously earmarked for COVID relief, number one? And by contrast with that, how are other communities that are using it to beef up mental health resources and some of the alternatives to policing, how are they getting the money in those instances?
Yeah, right. Thanks. So it's a two-part piece here. Like in Alabama, they're just using the money. They got the money. So in Alabama, they're planning on spending $400 million on 3 new prisons. That's a prison project that the governor's been stumping for several years now. And now that there's this big influx of cash due to COVID relief, federal funding, they're pushing through on funding these new prisons. I talked to activists on the ground, and it's folks with the Alabama Justice Initiative, that's LaTanya Tate, and I talked to Veronica Johnson from my article, and they fought it. They went around to the small towns in Alabama and fought the prison proposal, and and stopped it, and yet still the state and the governor is going through with their plans. They appealed to the U.S. Treasury Department. The Treasury Department came out and said you can't use the money on prisons, and the governor is still moving forward. So far, at least, the Biden administration has not stepped in to intervene in Alabama. So this potentially gives a green light to all other states, jurisdictions, to use this money pretty much willy-nilly, however they want to. Now, there are some cases where, there are smaller amounts of money that people are struggling, fighting for. I talked to people in South Bend, Indiana, who are using millions of dollars to open up a crisis center that police, instead of taking people to jail, they'll be able to take people to this crisis center. So there are ways. In my own community, I live in Illinois, in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. We have a reentry program here. They got around $1 million from the local city government in order to support a reentry program. That's a program that's in great need here in Illinois. So there are ways in which people are struggling to get the money back. I really like to, in my journalism, like to highlight people on the ground who are really fighting the good fight to try to get the money in the right hands. But it's going to be a fight everywhere.
Kelly?
Yeah. How is this not fraud? How are these entities able to do this? Because, and I'm sure you recall, there was what felt like a campaign against people who misappropriated PPP loan money, and disguised themselves as LLCs and other, corporate entities trying to get loan money from the government during COVID-19. And it just felt like people were like the chickens were coming home to roost, and all of that money was getting grabbed back to the government and they were being jailed. So how are you able to, as a government, misappropriate funds on an application that is what I'm assuming to be quite specific as regarding how to spend it? How is this not fraud?
Yeah, well, the federal government hasn't really stepped in to provide any kind of discretionary measures to prevent this. So budgets, they're just putting this under some personnel costs, a general fund, and it's starting to come out. It's coming out bit by bit about what this money's being spent on. So there was just another story that came out this week that several departments are using this to purchase police drones. And other police technology like automated license plate readers. And even President Biden has promoted these shot spotters. They're supposed to detect gunshots, and they're highly flawed technology. But, we have to question the Biden administration. We know the Biden back in the 90s supported the crime bill, was the architect of the crime bill. And so I think many activists saw this coming and are quite disappointed, but maybe not surprised that this is all allowed to go on under the Biden administration.
Michael?
All right, Brian. Hey, thanks for writing this article and coming to share this information with us today. So I have a lot of questions, but one of the questions that I have is, what has been the response from members of Congress, especially Democrats in Congress, but you have Republicans that represent, Alabama as well, but especially Democrats, because no Republicans voted for the American Rescue Plan, even though it benefited a lot of people in America, a lot of Republicans. No Republicans voted for it. So what has been the response from members of Congress, especially Democrats, in how this money is apparently being misused for police departments?
Well, it's mostly widespread denial, I think. Biden has come out in the State of Union address claiming that he's proposing another $30 billion for police, and against claims, in campaigns over the last 2 years that they're called to defund the police. The Democrats have done a 180, and after kneeling with kente cloths after George Floyd was killed by Minneapolis police. Now they're going around saying we don't need to defund the police. We need to fund the police, and they're allocating billions for it. And they're lining up behind Biden and other candidates for the midterms. So the Democrats have really turned their back on advocates in the streets who have been calling for police reform. keep in mind here, these are, in LA and Chicago and in Kansas City, police budgets make up 40-50% of the total city budget. So when we talk about defunding the police, we're talking about reducing these huge budgets for the police. While there's some people have taken first steps, in most all cities, there's been very little progress made. And by Democratic and Republican Party leadership, there's been really no advocacy for what's going on in the streets. I mean, we have another summer coming up here in 2022. Are there going to be more police killings of Black youth? We're likely to see it again. And we're just going to keep playing out this narrative and keep watching these videos until there's some real change.
All right, then. You're right. Look, what you have Democrats is trying to respond, midterm elections, they're freaking out. Conservatives are hitting them, talking about the whole crime is skyrocketing, and they're just racing to throw more money at the cops. But it's not, again, being spent properly and wisely. And so we'll keep that pressure going on. Great reporting there. Now, folks, go to, pull it up, please. Go to theappeal.org, theappeal.org. We've had several of their stories up before. They do some great work covering the critical issues dealing with, criminal justice reform, what's happening out there, protesting as well. So theappeal.org. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?